Tonight on Weatherwise, Jackson Chastain tells us about a few of the main types of fog here in northeastern Mississippi and western Alabama. Take a look.
Meteorologist Jackson Chastain here with the latest edition of Weatherwise. Now, if you've ever been out in the morning, sometimes it's pretty foggy outside. You'll see this big cloud that you really can't see through outside, and really it happens not too frequently, but it happens often enough that you notice it, especially when you're driving, especially when you're flying, where it can pose a very serious hazard. Now, Mississippi, northeast Mississippi, northwestern Alabama getting about 10 to 20 days fog days per year, and today I'm kind of going to tell you about the different fog types, two of the more common fog types that you may experience, especially in this region in our neck of the woods. Now, that first type, that's going to be steam fog, and typically how that forms is if you've ever been to a big body of water like a lake, a river, it can even be a small body of water like a pond or something like that. But basically what happens is if you have solar heating of the water surface, that warms up. You got a colder air mass that kind of moves on over this water body, and basically you get a temperature, a gradient, a temperature difference between the surface of the lake and then the air above it. And basically how that pans out is that you have water that's evaporating from the surface. It's escaping up into the air above it, and it's actually warming the air above it, and that's actually transferring heat energy along with it. It's also transporting moisture into the surface, so that air could be dry, but you're adding moisture to it, and as you add moisture to it, as you heat it up just a little bit, that water is eventually, what it's going to do is it's going to rise up in the air due to the process of convection, and it's going to condense. And what you're going to get is a very steamy-like appearance as these water particles condense as they're rising in the air due to the heating of the air by the water, and you get something called steam fog, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It looks like steam rising off the surface of a body of water, and it's actually pretty cool to look at. And as I mentioned, you really typically see this over bodies of water. That second type that I'm going to talk about is radiation fog, and that happens when you get solar heating of the ground during the day. That radiation gets released during the night, and as it gets released into the night, if you have moist air at the bottom, dry air at the top, you get something where the warmer air is passing through. It's passing through that moist air, and as it does so, it's really not warming up or cooling down that moist air nearly as much as it is with the warmer and drier air, because the moist air is not really retaining a lot of heat. And so as a result, it actually cools quicker than the air above it that may be drier because of just the moisture properties of that air. The result there is that it cools down quicker as night approaches, temperatures fall. It cools down quicker as that radiation escapes. It cools down and it condenses into water droplets, and you get something called radiation fog, where you get just that layer of fog close to the surface that really can pose a significant hazard, especially when you're on the roads at night. You probably have seen radiation fog at night, especially on days where you have some moisture in the air, you've had some solar radiation, sunny day, and typically this also occurs with light winds too. You don't want a lot of wind or it's going to blow that fog away, but that's radiation fog, and that's all I have for the latest edition of Weatherwise. Now, as always, if you have any questions, always happy to take those on our email, on our Facebook, on our Twitter, on our Instagram, whatever platform. We're always happy to take those questions, but otherwise, you guys have a great night.
Weatherwise is brought to you by 4 County Electric Power Association.